Hello, and welcome to the session, Automating System Security Profiling with SUSE Manager. I'm your host. My name is Patrick Swartz. I'm a SUSE sales engineer for the North America region. So today we're going to be covering what is SCAP. What is it anyway? We're going to talk about SUSE Manager and the OpenSCAP environment. We're going to look at policies, how to edit them, how to use them. We're going to do a couple of demos, and then we'll look at some remediation options and another demo. So here we go. So what is SCAP anyway? Well, SCAP is a specification for expressing and manipulating security data in a standardized way. SCAP uses several individual specifications in concert to automate continuous monitoring, vulnerability management, security policy, compliance, evaluation, reporting. The OpenSCAP project provides a wide variety of hardening guides and configuration baselines developed by the open source community that ensures that you can choose which policies best suits your organizational needs, regardless of your size. So how do we pull in OpenSCAP and use that inside of SUSE Manager? So we're going to show that how they can work in concert. SUSE Manager uses the OpenSCAP to implement the SCAP specifications. OpenSCAP uses a tool that utilizes the Extensible Configuration Checklist Description Format, or XCCDF for short. It's a standardized way of expressing a checklist of content to define the security checklists. OpenSCAP verifies the presence of patches using content produced by SUSE security team. The OpenSCAP checks system security configuration settings, which is what we're going to look at today, and examines systems for signs of compromise using rules based on standards and specifications. So let's look at some policies. Let's see how this all works together. This is a screenshot of a couple of policies, and we're going to see this in real time as we go into the demo, but the OpenSCAP workbench gives me a graphical policy editor that I can then select with a simple checkbox of what I want to check for. Maybe in this case, I don't want to check for the integration with AID, or I don't need to check for some other issues, like maybe ensure var log is located on the separate partition. Maybe I don't care about that. Maybe var temp needs to be located on a separate partition. I can check box each of these because I'm using, in this case, the CIS version of the SUSE Enterprise 15 benchmark. And each benchmark will have different guidelines based upon what they need to look for. CIS will maybe concentrate on one area, where STIG will concentrate on another, or just generic kernel hardening can be completely different. But the OpenSCAP workbench gives me that graphical policy editor by which to make these changes. Or if I'm really good with Vim and XML editor, I can go directly into the XML file, which can be extremely long, like 65,000 lines, maybe possibly. So if you're really good when you want an XML, by all means, you can do that as well. So once we've created that it's considered a tailoring file, once I've made my modifications, the OpenSCAP workbench is going to allow me to save those changes, just the changes themselves, into what they call a tailoring file. And this is where it's going to tell me what name am I going to use for that tailoring file. And then inside of SUSE Manager, when I go to schedule, and which we'll see, I can tell it which tailoring file I'm going to use against which profile is that tailoring file built for. I can tell it where the path of the XCC document lies, and then tell it a time and date to run it. Okay. So now let's jump into a demo real quick here, if I can make this work. So inside of SUSE Manager, I can look at a particular system, and let's pick on this one right here. This is a SLES 15 Spec 3, as I named it. And I can simply click on Audit. Okay. And I can see a number of systems that I've audited. You can tell I've already done this a number of times. Different profiles, CIS, some STIG. Okay. So let's look at, let's go back to our here. What actually are we going to demo? Well, we're going to demo finding the ID that matches our needs, because there could be multiples. I'm gonna show you real quickly just how that editing tool works. We're gonna launch a scan from SUSE Manager. Look at the results, make a few changes, rerun the scan. So we're going to show you in the typical cooking show. I've already done this for us, so we don't have to spend the time waiting for it to be completed. Okay, so let's go back to our box. Okay, and let's go to the command line of that machine. So this is the command line of that machine, and if I look at using the tool OpenSCAP, I can run the command in the target info on this particular data source, or data stream rather, for SLE 15. If I simply run this command, it's going to run through and it's going to spit out several titles or profiles that this particular data stream supports. You can see it supports the CIS, it supports HIPAA, it supports PCI DSS, the standard, and STIG, all aside this one data stream. So I can choose whichever policy I need to maybe tweak in my environment to create my tailoring file based off of one of these areas. So let's look at doing that. Let's just go to here. So when I first launched the CIS or the SCAP workbench, it's going to ask for which content do I want to load. In this case, I'm going to load the SLE 15 content. Okay, and load content. And then I get this nice graphical editor here on the screen that I can then, maybe I need to, like we talked about aid, we don't want to install that. So let's customize this. And here comes this screen that we're going to talk about. We're going to underscore this with maybe SUSECON. Okay. And it gives me the ability then to customize this profile with simple checkboxes. Like I mentioned, we don't care if we have aid installed or not. We don't want to even check for that. Okay. Maybe we don't want to check for things like home in its own partition or temp in its own partition. We don't care about these. We definitely want var in its own partition and log. We don't care about audit or var temp. So once we save these, once we've gone through this list, and it's, like I said, it's pretty extensive. We can modify the banner. This is, for an example, on this banner, this is the description that it expects when it runs the rule. This is the wording that this one is going to expect. Okay. When this runs. And if this wording isn't exact, it's going to fail the banner or the message of the day, the login banner. Okay. So I can go through and I can check all kinds of, like, we're going to look at, as I've made changes, we're going to look at the password quality requirements. You can see where maybe the retry limit, currently it's set for 3, right here, retry equals 3. Maybe I need to change that. Minimum length, maybe I need to change that. So I can work through all of these parts and set it up exactly as the environment that I need for my world. Okay. These are guidelines. These are profiles that you start with. Once I'm done with that, I simply click OK. And you can see I can now go to File, Save Customization Only, and tell you where I want to put it, what I want to save. We're going to save that tailoring file. Okay. And once I'm done with that, I can simply go back to SUSE Manager, go to my system, and as I said, we can schedule one. We can tell it exactly how we've done it before. We're going to pick this particular tailoring file and that particular profile. All right. We're going to pick the customization or the data stream. And then we simply tell it, when do we want to run this test? And simply set schedule. And that's going to go out and run this scan for us on our box. Okay. But while we wait for that one to run, we can look at a couple that we've already done. Let's look at these two. Part of what we're going to look at is some of the results. So let's look, first of all, let's look at the original one that had no customization whatsoever. Okay, we ran this STIG. I can see it provides this nice report HTML file, which pops up. It tells me about what we ran, that this is STIG for SUSE Enterprise 15. It shows us what passed, what failed, and the others that we may not have been checked. And you can see right off the bat, installing aid failed. All of these things considered with aid failed. Our home and var was failed because they weren't not in the same or a different partition. So we had a number of failures that we needed to contend with. Then, so let's go back and look at I can do a comparison then between two scans, the original without any customization and this one with customizations. And I can compare the two scans. You can see one where it failed and one where they just weren't selected because I chose it. I told it not to check on those things because I don't care about those things. So I can quickly go through, I can customize my environment so that I'm only testing for the things that I care about. Okay. So let's go back to this real quick. Go back to our audit. All right. So once we've compared that and we see some areas, like let's look at the original content that we looked at. Let's close these and select this one and look at our results. Oops, wrong one. This was just a standard CIS benchmark. I had a number of failures here on this one, like the partitions, my login banner, my message of the day. Okay. If I go over to look at some of these, you'll notice there's that text that I was talking about that it's looking to find in the Etsy issue file. Or you can either have this text or this text. One of those two texts needs to be in the Etsy issues. Okay, fine. We can set that up. Now, we also provide you a couple of ways right within this. We can look at the shell script that will do this for us, or we also provide some of these provide Ansible playbooks or snippets that will do this as well. And we're going to look at a third way when we get to the next demo. But we can close that and see what we've got. So once we've done some of these, you can tell that I've gone through here. And you can see I had a number of failures, 103 failures, or 106 failures on the first scan. The second scan, I fixed some things, and I only had 101 failures. Not bad. We're making progress. Let's compare those two scans and see what the differences are. So on the first one, I had a bunch of rules around my password requirements. You know, the U credits, the D credits, the L credits. Okay. They all failed. I also had this issue about sudo added using PTY. Well, they failed on the first scan. They passed on the second scan. Awesome. What did I do different? Well, that's what we're going to talk about next when we get to how do we fix these things and make it automated to go through our process here. Okay. So let's jump back into our our presentation here and see where we go to next. So once we've looked at what has failed, what has passed, how do we go about remediating those? And like I showed you a couple of things. We provide, some of them provide Ansible or shell snippets to work with. We're going to look at also another way of doing it using customizing your own salt states and salt configuration channels to do this with. Okay, so let's look at that now and see what we've done to make that work. So you can see in this example, I had a couple of uname credit. My passwords were not the way they should be compared to that profile. Fine. So what I've done, I've taken those pieces and like the sudo piece, and I've created a salt state configuration channel called SCAP resolutions. This is a very simple channel to fix some of the things. I just keep adding, fix various OpenSCAP issues. I keep adding things as I learn to this particular state. And you can see I've run through here. I continue to add into this state channel the different things that I found during my scans. And there's my one that fixed all of my password issues that OpenSCAP complained about. So with this one command, I'm able to fix that using the salt state command run. You can also see I've added some of the things that complained about the use pty inside my sudoers file. So I did a simple file append and added the text use pty in my sudoers file. Another one complained about I needed to add the UMass text to the bash RC, some stuff I needed to add to the login defs, the message of the day. Here, I've actually stored the exact text I want to be deployed into the Etsy issues file or the Etsy MOTD. And I'm pulling them both actually out of the same file that's stored on my Salt Master, which is my SUSE Manager server. So you can see I continue to add to this to create this remediation so that when I go to a system then, and if I were to pick a system here, for example, all I would need to do then is to subscribe to that SCAP resolutions channel. Okay. Go to my states. Oops. One step too fast. Subscribe to channels. SCAP resolutions. Continue. Update. Now when I go to my high state, you can see my SCAP resolutions is there, and I simply click on high state. Apply the high state. Once my high state is ran, the things that I pointed out in that SCAP resolutions configuration channel will have been resolved on this box. I can do this this is against a system that I've already brought into SUSE Manager. However, if I had chosen, I could go to my activation keys inside of SUSE Manager. And as I bring machines on into SUSE Manager, all I need to do then is add my SCAP resolutions channel to the configuration of my activation key, so that now as systems are brought into SUSE Manager, they are automatically configured to be resolved for any SCAP resolutions that I've fixed. So that I can be very confident that as systems are brought in, they meet my minimum requirements that I have found using OpenSCAP. All right. So that's a very quick understanding of how SUSE Manager works with OpenSCAP and how we can make things automated to find those issues and resolve them. I appreciate your time. I look forward to any questions you might have, and I hope you enjoy the rest of SUSECON. Thank you for watching.